the 70s. We're in the midst of the Vietnam War. We are a war-weary nation, growing unhappiness with the federal government. We had the civil rights movement still enacting a lot of change across communities nationwide. We have the beginnings of the gay rights movement.
It was a time when we were talking about ERA. It was a time when we were talking about all sorts of equity for women. We were talking about equal pay, which had not even been brought up prior to that time.
And the Equal Rights Amendment was a prominent piece of legislation during the movement.
The Equal Rights Amendment just simply states that the rights of citizens under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state based on sex.
Today, it's difficult to comprehend the level of inequality and limited rights women had up through the 1970s. Women couldn't get credit in their own name or open up a business without the cooperation of their husband or father. And perhaps most shockingly, women had little control over their reproductive choices. In Nevada, the battle for rights and equality united and mobilized people from across the state. One of them was Jean Ford.
Jean Ford is a great example of a middle-class mother who becomes involved in politics and then becomes very involved in advancing women's rights.
In 1972, Ford won her campaign for the state legislature and became an advocate for women, children, and the environment. Despite all of the positive principles associated with the Equal Rights Amendment, it did not have unanimous support.
What's wrong with asking that everybody be treated equally under the law? But, oh my goodness, the resistance was just incredible. There was resistance from some religious groups. There was resistance from some men. There was resistance from some women who said, I don't want to be equal. I want to be special.
Many of the anti-ERA activists saw this as an absolute unmooring of society as we know it.
They would give arguments that, well, what if a woman was a firefighter? Of course, we now have firefighters. What if they went to war? They would be maybe in a foxhole with men. Then, of course, the whole argument on the fact that it was going to create this huge bureaucracy.
In the end, Nevada did not pass the ERA. But this certainly didn't stop people from fighting for issues related to gender equity, such as violence against women. In the 1970s, few resources existed to help victims of rape. In Las Vegas, a small group of community members created the Rape Crisis Center. Florence McClure directed it.
The first problem the Rape Crisis Center was trying to solve was helping the victim survive the event. If it's not safe for her to go home, then there's a place for her to go.
But providing rape victims a safe place to stay was only the tip of the iceberg when it came to Florence McClure's efforts. She persisted until action was taken to help raise awareness and to increase funding.
Florence McClure is one of the makers because she, with her co-workers, changed the entire view of the state of Nevada legally towards women who had been sexually assaulted.
Throughout this episode, we've discovered how the efforts of individual women and groups of women greatly affected the course of Nevada's history. Next up, we hear why some modern makers think it's important to recognize the issues, barriers, and accomplishments of women in the past.
These were tough women who were willing to take on controversial issues and to put themselves out there for both better and worse.
They had the capabilities, they had the knowledge, they had the education in their area, and they had the spine to move forward.
To hear other people overcome anything gives us the ability to know that we can overcome anything.
In the last half hour, we've met some amazing women who faced significant challenges, who stood up for their rights and who never stopped embracing and making opportunities for themselves and others. Their determination and bravery helped to build up their Nevada communities and lay the groundwork for its future. Coming up on the next episode of Makers Women in Nevada History. From the 1980s on, the world started evolving at an astounding rate. The opportunities for American women were practically limitless. In Makers Into the Future, we're introduced to some of the groundbreaking women who were the first to hold statewide offices. We meet others who ran major businesses and those whose passion bettered their communities. The next Makers will show us where Nevada's women stand today and where they're headed in the future.